Good evening, and welcome to Red's Classic Theater. When Superman opened, they said, "You'll believe a man can fly." For tonight's movie, they could have said, "You'll believe a man is a fly." Hi, everybody, I'm Red Robinson. Our movie this week stars Vincent Price and David Hedison in The Fly. When it opened, critics were unimpressed, but moviegoers made it a box office hit. And now, here's Act One of The Fly. Tonight on Red's Classic Theater, we're featuring the original 1958 version of The Fly. The Fly was conceived and produced as a B-movie with a budget of $350,000, a paltry sum even by 1958 standards. But once the word got out on The Fly, moviegoers swarmed to the theaters to see it. In the end, The Fly made $3 million at the box office. Not bad for a sci-fi flick that the critics hated. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Even as movie fans rushed to see The Fly, the critics were slamming it, mostly for what they perceived to be poor production values and hammy acting. But 20th Century Fox couldn't care less. They had the sleeper hit of the year on their hands. And the production values, they weren't all that bad, although David Hedison did complain that trying to act through the Fly's head was like trying to play the piano with boxing gloves. Now let's return to The Fly. Hope you're enjoying The Fly this week on Red's Classic Theater. With the success of tonight's film, 20th Century Fox wasted no time in bringing a sequel to the big screen. Return of The Fly, again featuring Vincent Price, opened a year later, but could not match the fan appeal of the original. 6 years after that, Fox tried again, this time with Curse of the Fly. The only film to match the shock value of the original was the 1986 remake featuring Jeff Goldblum and directed by Canadian filmmaker David Cronenberg. Now, back to The Fly. The Fly is our feature movie this week on Red's Classic Theater. Creating the hideous fly head for actor David Hedison to wear in tonight's movie was a painstaking process. After making a plaster cast of the actor's face, makeup artist Ben Nye used sculpted latex, fine mesh wire, clay, and small black beads to create the multi-eyed head of the human insect. Ironically, after weeks of work, the Fly makeup was only seen on screen for a few minutes as David Hedison's character in the movie eventually covered his head with a white cloth. Now let's return to David Hedison in The Fly. Hope you're enjoying The Fly this week on Red's Classic Theater. The final scene in tonight's film was supposed to be one of the most horrifying in the movie, but instead, on the set, it turned out to be the funniest to shoot. Now, there's an aspect of that final scene that seemed to appeal to the humor of Herbert Marshall and Vincent Price. Try and try they did, but every time they break up laughing, so much so that they almost made themselves sick. So after many tries and an entire day of filming, they decided the only way to pull it off was to stand and act back to back, because they couldn't look at each other in the face. Look for this in the final scene of tonight's movie. Now let's return to The Fly. Time now to test your knowledge with our weekly trivia quiz. In addition to being a fine actor, Vincent Price was also an art historian, and he used his knowledge of art to win big on a 1950s quiz show. Can you name that show? We'll be back with the answer in just a moment. Here's the answer to our trivia quiz. On two different occasions, Vincent Price split the big prize on the $64,000 challenge. And Vincent Price escaped the quiz show scandals because he'd never been coached. And he won big again when 20th Century Fox, taking advantage of Vincent Price's newfound popularity, signed him for tonight's film. Now let's return to The Fly. Next Sunday night on Red's Classic Theater, Arnold Schwarzenegger searches the jungle for a ferocious invisible enemy from outer space. Predator. That's our movie next week on Red's Classic Theater. And that's all the time we have for this week's show. Hope you enjoyed Vincent Price and David Hedison in The Fly. By the way, we'd love to hear from you with your location ideas. Don't be shy. Pick up the phone tomorrow morning and call us at TV12. I'll see you tomorrow morning on 650 CI with the Wake Up Club, and next week here on Red's Classic Theater at 10 p.m. Thanks for being with us. Good night, everybody. The Fly on Red's Classic Theater will continue. The Fly on Red's Classic Theater will continue. The Fly on Red's Classic Theater will continue. This week on Red's Classic Theater, an experiment goes awry, turning a scientist into an insect. The Fly, Sunday night at 10 here on TV 12. Tonight on Red's Classic Theater, an experiment goes awry, turning a scientist into an insect. The Fly, tonight at 10 here on TV 12. Vincent Price in The Fly, Sunday night at 10 here on TV 12. The Fly, starring Vincent Price on Red's Classic Theater, tonight at 10.